Hello and welcome to the Wixoss Diva Live episode 10 review. I'm Cullen.
And I'm Honey Panda Bunny. So I thought it was really interesting, and it almost gave me a little bit of glimmers from the old series, but with it's obviously a new fresh new paint that is in this series. It was very interesting to see kind of Harana at a low point, but also interesting to see how dark some of these characters can actually become.
The overall episode up until the ending I thought was actually really solid. I was really enjoying it, and then obviously the ending happens, and that's the big story at the end. So we see that everyone's reactions to the No Limit versus Deuce match announcement. And of course, everyone is shocked. We see Universe's beginning and we see Diagram. They're both obviously caught off guard by this because they weren't expecting it. And we also see the card jockey. We see in particular the MC Lion. She's notably upset, which makes sense because as in the vacation episode, we see that it was her dream to eventually face Deus Ex Machina.
It was really interesting, like you said, to see them here, but also we see the kind of friends but rivals. And it was really interesting to see that here, how they were just rivals to begin with, and now they've actually made quite close friends, as we see that they kind of rely and help No Limit towards the end. And even with Card Jockey, who I thought was going to be a bit antagonistic towards them, actually also were really helpful despite being upset, which I think just shows how close these guys' friendships have become.
Yeah, we do see that the teams that they've met over the course of the series, they lend their support for this upcoming battle. Universe's beginning gives Deus Ex Machina's battle data. Munchika spends all night recording their outside interests, which was very funny. But it also shows that, as you said, that they've grown quite fond of No Limit. And I thought it was interesting that we get the response to No Limit as well, where Rei and Akino, they're both naturally hesitant to face Deuce. But it's not because they don't want to face them, it's more that they don't feel that they're ready just yet. And we also see that Harana is really committed to this battle because we see that in her notebook she was writing all kinds of strategies and that she really is dedicated to having this one-on-one. And as you said as well, Card Jockey, while initially we thought they were antagonistic, it ends up playing off quite humorous, with MC Lion and Harana both having quite hilarious faces, and they end up having a mock battle to get them ready for the upcoming battle. We also see as well that Excel she's visualizing the matches. She's like in her training room, she's got the playmat down, she's got the cards, and she's really like psyching herself up for this match. And it's something as well that when her teammates come in, they comment that she hasn't done this in a while. This is not usual for Excel recently. And it just shows how dominant they've been, as well as Excel's grown discouraged by opposing teams losing heart quickly. We see that previously Meteor Heart, they had, after the loss, they talked about how it can't be helped that they just can't beat Deus Ex Machina, and they're blaming their loss on just being unable to live up to them.
I think it's the case of everyone has that rise and that fall when it comes to it, and I'm sure that XL was expecting this not to happen with Harana, obviously. She'd planned vigorously for this, as we see, and she got really excited, and it almost like brought that old self in her, like she stated in the last episode, so I'm sure she was really excited for this battle, but it went the same way.
Well, she mentions that in that scene is that Harana reminds her of the girl she used to be, the one that was inspired by Eternal Girl, and Harana's mantra of never giving up, and because of that she's very eager for this battle. And we see that it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy where no one can challenge them because they're so strong, and because of that everyone feels that they can't challenge them, so it's almost like a self-defeating. Just before the battle, we see that all the previous teams, including Harana's previous team from the first episode, the green-haired girl and the yellow-haired girl, are watching this battle. While this is a big occasion, it did feel a little bit weird to reintroduce them in this episode, especially the fact that they don't have any lines. It just cuts to them. There isn't really any reintroduction to these characters that haven't appeared since episode 1. I actually think it would have been nice if maybe just before the battle, these two characters had approached Harana and talked to her and had a scene where it's like them not reconciling but like catching up and being like, oh Harana, look how far you've gotten now that you're getting a battle with Deus Ex Machina. So No Limit versus Deus Ex Machina. And we see that No Limit are playing the battle slightly differently to how they usually do it. When Harana is in the center, they usually play much more aggressive. But here, as well, they're playing a lot slower and more defensive. And even Excel comments after their first turn that they're unable to win if they keep playing this slow. And even on the last turn as well, Harana buckles down on playing defensive, and then with the next turn that they were planning on using their peace card to hopefully get the win.
We've seen obviously that they've played defensive before when it's come with Akino as well, but it is pretty weird that Harana did this. I'm used to her being the fiery, get in there, slap and attack, but with the obviously amount of ideas and planning that she'd put into this, perhaps she'd thought that she'd go around a more defense strategy, following kind of like Akino's strategy here.
I don't think that this is Harana playing scared. I think it's a case where she had a strategy that she had established from her notebook, right? And she was like buckling down on that and hoping that would win. I don't think it was a case that she was playing scared or anything. And I do think it was a case that because they picked Harana to be the center for this battle, that it probably went kind of against their style. If they were going to go for the more slow defensive, maybe it would have made more sense for Akino to be in the center. Another thing that I really like as well is during this battle, we get all the teams and they're all like commenting, and they all have like differing opinions on the battle, which I thought was actually really interesting. Universe is beginning talking about the data and stuff like that, and we see like Mujika and their team are like cheering them on. But then, like, through the battle, Karjoki are like, well, if they keep playing like this, they're not going to be able to win. And then on the last turn as well, Universe is beginning are like, no, it's a good idea that they buckle down on defense as well. Karjoki's like, no, you need to attack now. So I thought that was really interesting to see the different, like, their opinions on the battle. I thought it was actually really interesting.
You could even say maybe their influence perhaps put No Limit at disadvantage, because if Harana had gone into this without considering all of the data, all of the information that the rest of them had given them, perhaps they would have gone on the offensive and actually managed to beat them. But who knows? It was really interesting to see whether the influence changed how Harana reacted here.
I did find it the most interesting that it's Lion and her team, which are the most like vocal. They have like the strongest opinions, which makes sense because this is the battle they wanted. So obviously they're the ones that are the most invested in it. So No Limit put in a decent performance, but they still prove no match for Deus Ex Machina, which makes sense as they're a Class C to a Class A. Machina comments that they did good. They even did better than most teams that faced them, but perhaps it was just too early for them to face such a veteran lineup at the moment, and she thinks that they just needed time. Excel approaches the losing team, and her smile at this point does seem fairly genuine, and I don't think she was meticulously planning what she does next. I think it's more a spur of the moment that was caused by her own frustration. She hears Harana admit defeat, and then she blames the loss on just being unable to live up to Deus, which echoes what Meteor Heart had said and every other team that they'd faced before. And to Excel, just in that moment, she felt that Harana had become the same as them, that she was putting a forced limit on herself when she promised that she would be able to surpass that.
If she'd just let Harana finish what she was saying, because what Harana was just about to say was along the lines of, I'll practice and get better. Along the lines after that, she was going to say that, which isn't defeat. That means she wants to work harder and show that there's no limits. But obviously Excel kind of gets, something snaps in her and she kind of goes a little bit crazy.
What Excel does next is not right at all, but I will say that in her warped reasoning, I can understand where she's coming from. I don't agree with it, and obviously her logic is flawed, but I can understand from her perspective why she would think that. Something I noticed was that after Harana says that, there's a shot that cuts to Ray's face, and I read that as also frustration, but it's like a more condensed version of Excel's. And I wonder, is that frustration at Harana's words that she feels similar to Excel, or was that her own inability, or was it her unable to comfort Harana in that moment?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it was a frustration for her in a sense of perhaps she didn't feel like they'd played the best that they could do. Because obviously her thing is not about whether it's winning or losing, it's about whether they play the best to their ability. And I don't feel like the other girls on the team really got to shine with this strategy. It didn't feel like equal effort was put into all of them, which I think it was focused a lot on Harana versus Excel rather than team versus team, I found here. So I think it was just overall frustration at the plan, perhaps.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I do think Ray's frustrated because while she does believe that you should do your best, I also believe that she plays to win. So Excel snaps after hearing Harana's echo the words of her previously defeated opponents, saying that they aren't finished and that they are going to battle again right now. And we see that the crowd looks incredibly uneasy at this. We see that Mika P sees that Excel is clearly not thinking. And again, I don't think that Excel is trying to humiliate Harana. I don't think she's doing this with evil intentions. When she's doing this battle, it's like she's trying to force Harana to live up to the ideals that she said. And she feels that if she gives up, then how will she prove that she has no limits? So that's why she just keeps forcing her to battle her over and over and over again. It's almost like Excel is literally trying to force the battle that she wants into existence.
I still don't feel like this would actually happen in a real life game. I feel like someone would have intervened much earlier, but something I was actually glad about, there was a problem that I had in a previous episode, is that Akino and Rei never seem to step in whenever, or Harana and Akino never really step in. But here we see Akino and Rei actually try to step in and stop Excel, but obviously they kind of get blown back because of it. But I actually like that they tried to step in this time, until eventually we see obviously Deus Ex Machina, the rest of the team stepping in to stop the battle eventually. But it was a horrible thing to happen to Harana, but we're really seeing Harana at her lowest point now, and her really questioning, why am I even fighting? If it's gonna come to this, what's the point?
So during the battle, Excel's going on this tirade talking about don't give up, don't run away, and Harana does mention the words that Eternal Girl had said. That's her mantra. But Excel just sees that as incredibly hollow words. And we do see that the crowd becomes increasingly uncomfortable throughout this. We even see Kyuru Kyurun, they come back. And we see them in the earlier parts of the battle where they're cheering on No Limit losing. But even then, they can't actually watch this incredibly uncomfortable beatdown. And Excel just keeps attacking her over and over again. As you mentioned, Rei and Akino do try to step in, but it's all for naught. And then even the crowd start logging out. They don't want to watch it anymore. And I think it's such an interesting take on this, where if you think about it, what Excel is actually saying is a positive thing. She's saying, don't run away, don't impose limits on yourself, as she's mercilessly assaulting Harana. There's just this interesting juxtaposition of this really positive message enforced by Excel essentially breaking down as she's just repeatedly assaulting Harana. And I couldn't help but feel that at the end of this battle, while Harana is reduced to a quivering wreck and questioning why she's even chosen to be a diva, I couldn't help but feel that no one comes away from this feeling better. Everyone who watched it was traumatized. Harana may come away hating diva battles, and Excel didn't get the battle she wanted. And Deus Ex Machina's public image has probably been tarnished, as we've seen with Mika P. So I find it really interesting that everyone hits a really low point in this episode. So this episode went from a 0 to 100 in the last few minutes, and while I didn't expect No Limit to get the win, I was caught off guard by the ending, and it would be interesting to see the fallout for all parties involved in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the end half that we got here either, and like I said, it kind of did give me a throwback to kind of Akira and how crazy she can kind of go. So it was really interesting to see that mix almost coming back in, but like you said, with the juxtaposition of it actually being her saying positives. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen next, especially with Deus Ex Machina. I want to see whether they do actually lose popularity or whether they're going to get a penalty for what they've done here, obviously.
I think it may be unfair to punish Deus Ex Machina because it was essentially Excel. The other two weren't really involved. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.